Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Huh. Well, what a revolting development that is. Need to get that out of there. Well, what's going on here? Well, I don't know if y'all can hear me or not, but I can't get this pulled down. Man, there I am. I don't know how that, wow. That was a mess. There's my background. That's what I wanted. And now I want to hide all of it. That was crazy. Okay. Well, we're still learning stuff around here. So, it's, yeah. Wow. Sorry about that, folks. Still learning this new broadcast platform. I switched over from StreamYard to EV Mux, and the controls are just different enough to cheese me off. But, what can we say? This too shall pass. Hey, y'all. Thanks for joining me this fine Sunday. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers and soon to be fathers out there amongst us. I know most of us are grandfathers by now because I'm big with the 55 and older crowd. So, yeah, this is a day meant for us. And for some reason, as mentioned earlier, we still seem to end up doing all the work. But, dad law number one, we gotta. So, before we get going, here's hoping this works anyway. Before we get going on today's live Q&A, I want to give a special shout out, say hello, and thank you to my friend Steve over at Harneal Media. I keep singing Steve's praises, but evidently not loud enough because some of you still haven't reached out to him. That's fine. I get it. I understand. But if you're even tinkering with the idea of starting your own website, maybe you're sick and tired of paying commissions and listing fees and having your competition advertised on the same page your products are being shown, then maybe it's time to reach out to Harneal Media and have a chat with him about setting up a web store so you can offer your products and services directly to the public without the middlemen, without paying all those commissions and fees, et cetera, et cetera. Not only that, it shows the world that you are serious about your business, and it gives your business legitimacy. It gives you credibility. And if you're tinkering with the idea of signing up for some of these affiliate programs, a lot of them require you to have an active website. Well, there is nobody I'm going to recommend other than Steve over at Harneal Media. Why? Because number one, he does a fantastic job. Number two, he's very competitively priced. Number three, it's 100% personalized service. When you deal with Harneal Media, you're dealing with Steve, not some nameless, faceless person in a call center someplace that you're never going to contact again. So do yourself a favor, get over to harnealmedia.com. There's a link down in the description box of this live stream and every live stream and video on my channel. Get over there, click the contact us button, and shoot Steve a message. He's more than willing to work with you. So that's harnealmedia.com. Thank you, Steve, for everything you do. I appreciate more than you'll ever know. Well, at least that worked. So, man, what a day. What a day. It's been something. So, um today's an open Q&A where you can ask me any question you'd like about Vectric Software projects, what's going on behind the scenes or anything like that. I've got a couple of questions already up and marked. Then I'm going to start one off. It's a little bit strange. This came from 8th Center. A few days ago, he posted a question off to the side as a comment in last week's live Q&A. It is basically an early question for this week. I can't get my Lua gadget files into the new version. They work in 11.5, but the actual Lua file version isn't saved anywhere in the 11.5 data folder. So it's not just a copy and paste job. All right, let me bring my okay, are we having okay, I'm not having any audio trouble. I see Marie from Acrylawood Designs is having an issue. But some of you are saying, "Oh no, oh, 8 centers here." I got that sorted, Mark. Left a message earlier, but I guess you didn't get that. No, I didn't get it. Let me go look, and nope, I don't see any kind of a reply to that. But anyway, I'm going to do a little bit of talking on the okay, turns out it was a copy and paste job, but it had to have its own new folder added to the gadget directory. Okay. Well, I'm still going to go over gadgets a little bit because you're not the only one to ask me the question. Okay. And the first thing is, where are the gadgets located? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spotlight my screen share. And what we're talking about is in VCarve Pro and Aspire. VCarve Desktop does not support gadgets. So you guys can take a break and, grab a beverage. But gadgets are, of course, up here. Now, this can get confusing at times, so bear with me just a little bit. Where to find the gadgets? That is, come up here to the File, and then come straight down here to Open Application Data Folder. And when we click on that, it's going to bring up the program data for the current version, 12.5. And if we look down here, there's gadgets. So I'll double click there, and there we have some of our gadgets. Okay. Now, if we look at what I've got here versus what I've got here, you'll notice that I have, for instance, the spiral gadget here, but the spiral gadget is not listed here. So, to be honest, I don't know where a lot of these are stored. I don't know where they're put. But I will tell you what you can do is you can still add gadgets. Now, it's going to install them where it wants to install them. And the easy way to install them is, as long as your previous version is installed on this computer, you can look in your downloads folder. Now I'll show you an example of that. I'm going to go to downloads, and there are a bunch of my, let me get down to them here. Come on, get down to them. There's one there, the square around gadget. there, I've got the install file here in my downloads folder. So what I can do is I can go up to gadgets, install new gadget, and then look, and here are a bunch of the gadget installers that I have. Let's take a look. Let's look at the gear maker gadget. So I can click on that, click open, and it's going to give me a license agreement for that gadget. I'll click agree, and it's successfully installed. So now close that. I come up to gadgets, and there is the gear maker. Now, you were looking for the spirograph 8 center. I can go over to the gadgets library, and it's gadgets.vectric.com, and that's going to take you to the main library, and you'll choose, like in this case, version 12 library. Now I can scroll down and look for various gadgets right here. There's the square around gadget. Let's see, there are some others here. But you notice there aren't many gadgets here. One that's missing, for example, is the gear maker. Well, that's because they haven't bothered to update the, they haven't updated the library to include all of the gadgets for version 12. So what you can do is come right down here and look at the gadgets for version 11. Now it's going to give you this banner up here. You're viewing the documentation for version 11, which is not the most recently released version. We know that. Okay, now I'm going to come down here. There's the gear maker. Square around, valance. And I don't think the spirograph is listed here because I don't think it's supported by Vectric. And there he is. It's a custom gadget in the forums, not officially supported, I don't think. Then in that case, you can go over to the forum. Let's go forum.vectric.com and log in. There's that. Okay, yada, yada, yada. Log in. Yeah, they got to verify I'm human. Yep, I'm human. All right, there we go. Now we can scroll down. There's the Aspire forums, VCarve Desktop and Pro forums, and we will eventually get down to gadgets. Right here, this forum lists all the gadgets that are available now. Here's general information. Here are user submitted gadgets, and here are gadget requests. If you look in these forums, you should eventually find what you're looking for. If you don't, this is the place to request the gadget. There are a few people who are members of the forum that's what they love to do is create gadgets. Okay. So that's where I would go to look for gadgets that are not a part of the gadget library. So we'll get rid of that. And I hope that helps folks who are looking for the gadgets. 8 Center says, the problem I have with the spiral gadget is that the golden spiral is using the wrong ratios or math or something. Yeah, that is something to talk about. Get into the gadget forums on the get in the gadget request forum and mention that. They can't fix something if they don't know it's broke. And I agree, the spiral gadget could be a little bit more clear on a few things. Um, for instance, it's kind of hard to get an exact measurement. I'm using my hands like you can see me. Let's just go get it. There's the spiral gadget right here. It's very difficult to create a spiral with a specific spacing between each of the loops, you know, and that should be an option added to the gadget. So, oh well, what can you say? All right. We have another question here from Butch Miller. I'll lead off with a version 12.503 question for when things get started. I see a shadow box at the bottom of the screen in the 3D view with instructions and a question mark at the end. How do we get rid of that? Well, Butch, what you'll do is shabunk. You'll come over here to the 3D view, and Butch is referring to this panel right here. Okay. Click on an object to select, click again to transform. Yeah, there are all kinds of different instructions down here. What you'll do is you'll put your cursor over that question mark. And right here it says toggle prompts. Click on that, and everything is gone except the question mark. This is here for convenience. If you are using a specific tool, let's go over here to the circle tool. You can view that selected tool's documentation by clicking this link right here, and it opened a browser page to the draw circle category. So if you have an issue that you would like to explore this tool further, that's how you would go about it. Just again, you can view the selected tools documentation by clicking on that little link right there. But to toggle these prompts on and off, you just put your cursor over the question mark, that turns them on, and click again, that turns them off. So I can close this. Okay, and that's in the 3D view. So I hope that yeah, okay, Butch says, yeah, that was easy enough. Yep, it was. So, okay, let's see. We have another question here. And oh, okay. I can unplug that one. Now we got Ellen asking, back to the basics. I'm having trouble combining two 3D objects from the clip art. I have to watch videos again, but help a girl out. Okay, Ellen, more than happy to, but help a brother out. Any two 3D components in particular, or are you talking about just in general? Because, I mean, there are a lot of ways to combine clip art elements. I'll do probably the easiest here real quick. We'll go into the clip art. And, okay, she says a rectangle in general. Okay, all right. Well, I'll pick out a rectangle. Let's go with domes and dishes. Then here's a flat rectangle. Let's do a flat square. It's basically the same thing, just all sides are equal. So I'll double click to put that square in the center of my material. Now, just a little bit of a cheat code here. This square you can see has rounded corners and it has a roundover on top. If I look at it in the 3D view, you can see that it has rounded edges and a roundover on the top edge. If you need, for instance, just a flat surface, it's very easy to go ahead and I'm going to hold down Shift to anchor this at the center. And I'm going to pull that out larger than my material. So now when I look in my 3D view, I have a large flat plane. Now, something to remember is when you increase in size, it's automatically going to scale the Z. So what I'm going to need to do is go into the Component tab, and I have the flat square selected. I can do this one of two ways. I can come over here to the Components tab, right-click on my flat square and go into Properties here. Or I can use these here. Now, this is my overall shape height, which is the shape's thickness plus the base height. This is just the shape's thickness without the base height. And this is the base height without the shape's thickness. So right now, my base height is 0. My shape height is 0.705. So 0 plus 705 gives me a total height of 0.705. If I want to change this, I can just click on that control, and you'll see how it put a cursor down here in this blank. Now I can change my shape height. I'm going to change it to 0.25. Then tap enter. And when I do, you saw it jump. Now that's only 1/4 of an inch thick. And if I go into the properties up here, we can see that. I've got a shape height of 1/4 inch. I've got a base height of 0. Now, combine mode is set to merge. I'm going to leave that alone for the time being. Close. And I'm going to go back to my clip art. Zoom out, and I'm going to click off. Now let's grab, what are we going to grab? We're going to go into, I don't want to go into the decorative. Let's go into animals. And let's get an alligator here with a little bit of almost a free-form carving. We'll double click and we'll put that right there in the center. Now I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to increase the size of my alligator. Now, if we look at the edge here that's all red, this is part of this model. Now here's where we have to be careful. We can look and this looks nice, but if we rock it this way, looking at the front, come on. Okay, it looks like we did all right. We see this kind of grayed out area here, but we see some parts of it are sticking up. and they are in focus, let's say. We don't have this misty kind of look. This could indicate that this part of the model is sticking up higher than our model surface, our material surface here. So you have to be careful. So, yeah, it's very, very close to sticking up higher than the material surface. So let me click on this, and we're going to look at our material height, 0.5561. And no base height. I'm going to bring that down to 0.5. So I'll click here, and I'll just eliminate this here. Come on. Go backspace and tap enter. And that looks okay. Yep, that looks all right. Now, here's the important part of all this. The alligator has been added with an add combine mode. Now, if I switch over to merge, it virtually disappears. What we've got to keep in mind is the software models from the bottom up. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to apply that flat square. Then it's going to take the alligator and add that to the model. The problem is I have the alligator set to merge. So it's merging with this flat plane. I don't want it to merge. I need it to add. But I'm going to play with subtract as well. Let's see what it does if we change the combine mode to subtract. Now we have this sticking up off of our flat plane. If we look at the bottom, we can see that the model is represented, but it's sticking up above our flat plane, and the alligator is recessed into the model, or into its shape. So it needs to be set, the combine mode needs to be set to add. So that's going to give us this overall look. And that should carve out nicely. Let me click back for a good top view. Now again, I said the software models from the bottom up. If I drag the alligator down so it's towards the bottom, it's still represented in this big plane, but it's the same as if the combine mode was set to merge. That's because the combine mode of the square is set to merge. Let me change that to add. And I had rearranged the order. The order matters. So it just depends on what I want to model first. This is my base. I want everything either added to or merged with it. So I need to make sure that flat square is down below. Okay. And now we're looking good. Now I can come back into my clip art and I can find let's take the blue heron over here. And I'm going to do this in the 2D view. I'm going to bring this bird up over here. Nah, I should do it in the 3D view. I'll bring this bird over here, and I'm going to reduce. There we go. Now, we'll go over here into the Components tab, and the heron combine mode is Add. So I can click off here. My alligator is down here in his hole, but my heron is up on top. Okay. Now, Ellen says that's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm scratching my head saying, what am I doing wrong? Okay. The thing to remember, Ellen, is you want your model's base to be the first thing that you put in here. Then everything you want to add to this model needs to go on top. Okay? Now, I could just as easily turn off this flat square, and I have my models. And they're all just fine. It's going to work the same way. Okay? My base is right here. My blue heron is right there. My alligator is right there. They would carve just fine. But if I want that base there to be seen, there we go. So, just remember, Ellen, your base needs to be the first thing here, whether it's a rectangle, a whatever it is. Let's say we've got something else going on. Let me select all of this and delete. And we will delete. So I've got no components in here. Let me go to clipart, and I'm going to go back to the domes and dishes. And we'll take my flat square, hold down shift, and we'll go about like so. So I've got it right here. Everything's good. But I want it to be a dish. I don't want it to be a dome. So I can go right over here to this icon, the last one to the right, click on it, and there are some of my properties. Now, if I want this to be dished, I can click, and that has changed the combine mode. Now I can close it. Now, again, when you're doing something like this, dishing out, we're going to get some jagged edges if we don't do something to clean that up. So we'll come back into the Design tab, and now I'm going to add a zero plane. In Aspire, I need to hold down Shift, then click this first icon, and that's going to fill in those jagged edges. Okay? So there's my dish. Now I can put something else inside it. We'll go back to animals, and I don't want to play with Wally Gator today. Let's put a bulldog in there. All right, now I've got my bulldog. And I'll hold down Shift, kind of make him a little bit bigger. All right, now I'm going to look at this, and oh my God, his chin is sticking up out of the model. Well, now I got a couple of things I need to concern myself with. First, let's jump back over here to the Design tab, but I want to look. My material's 3/4 of an inch thick. Okay. My dish, looking at my readouts down here, my dish is almost 3/4 of an inch thick itself. My bulldog is sticking up way above the surface of this carve. Looking at the front, you can see how far it's sticking up. Yes, the zero plane smooths the edges on a dish. It won't help you with the dome. Just the dish. Okay. So now what I got to do is I got to figure out what's going on here. I've got a dish that is carving way too deep. Now, let me go right back up to the top here. Right down here, I've got, it says point, if we look at my readout down here, it says I'm 0.7474 deep. I'm going to show you something that'll help you out. I want to know the thickness, the material I'm going to have left if I carve this. Well, all I need to do is hold down Control and, oh, that's only in the preview. Okay. So if I go over here and go into the preview, I have no tool paths. It's going to take forever to run tool paths for this. After the tool paths are calculated and you're in the preview window, uh, 3D view. Nope. Back over, close that. There we go. Go back over here. If you hold down Control, a thickness will pop up, letting you know how much material you'll have left. But only after you've calculated. Only for two-sided projects? I didn't think that was the case. Okay. Well, then I will play around with that. That's a good question because I did have somebody else ask about that on a two-sided job. Jack in the Shop says I did a carve of 3 dogs. It was a deep STL. The nose on one was a bit over the surface of the material. I did not catch it till the carve was done. I fixed it with some sanding wheels. Yeah, sometimes you got to bust out the Dremel and do some handwork, and that's just the nature of the beast. Back to this thickness thing in just a minute. We have the same situation going here. We have a dish that's carving too deep, number one. So we're going to have to fix that. So here in the 3D view, I can select the dish and then click it again. And I can select the thickness. Okay. Now it's going to cut negative 7474. Let's take it to, let's go to 0.5. Whoops. Okay. Now my dog, select my dog. His thickness is 0.7474. We need to fix that. Let's go with 0.5. So backspace, hit enter, and now just the tip of his nose is poked out there. So let's go with 0.499. I say again, 0.499. Enter. The tip of his nose. Okay, we're good now. So now if I switch over to the front, we've got nothing sticking up out of the way. Okay? No, you can't pit that dog. Okay, base height is the base of the model, not base of the material, correct? Correct. Let me show you here. Let me switch over back to the top. Zoom in. I'm going to turn it this way just a little bit. If we look over here especially, we see we've got a nice smooth transition from the dog's face down to the dish. There's a little bit of a, I call it a cliff right here, but not much. There's a bit that's nice smooth transition right here. Okay. So now let me back up, click off. We're going to click on that dog. Now I'm going to add a base height. I'm going to add a base height of 0.25 to make it obvious. Now you see how the whole dog raised up. What we've done is we've added a base underneath the model. It's lifted the model up. I'm using my hands like you can see. It's lifted the whole model up by adding a bit of base underneath the actual model. Now I can go back and undo that, and you'll see it drop back down. Before I do, get out of that. I did not save that. Before I do, we have a base height of 1/4 inch. Then we have a shape height of 0.499 for a total of 0.749. That's the total shape height. That's the shape height plus the base height gives us the total model height. I'm sorry, not total shape height, the total model height. So that's something else to watch out for. Let me go back in here and bring that back down to 0. Hit enter. And now I'm back down to the regular dog height. That's dog, D-A-W-G. If you're in New York, it's dog. But hey. All right. To go back to the component tree, you will see the 0 plane is its own component. The bulldog head is its own component, and it's on top of the 0 plane. And that's fine. The flat square is my base. My 0 plane somehow got moved off to the side. We can see the position right here. By clicking on it, I can go to X0, Y0, hit enter. My 0 plane is now centered on my material the same as the rest of my model. I don't know how it got moved over. But I want this order because I want this 0 plane applied to this dish. Okay? Okay, so the 0.25 of the base height that I had, starting where? It started at the surface of this dish. In this case. All right. It starts here, and this sits on top of it. Okay? So now I can, hello, there we go. Take an ISO view of it. I have no base height. All right. So You'll also notice that the zero plane has its own layer. This doesn't really affect much of anything here in the 3D view. I can turn it on. You can't really see anything. Turn it off. This really comes in over here on the 2D view. Remember, a zero plane is a flat plane with a thickness of 0 that sits at a specific spot in the model, but it also has a layer. If we turn on the zero plane layer in the 2D view, that's what happens. If we have any vectors under the zero plane, they can get obscured. The default is the zero plane turned off. That way you can have any vectors out here visible. If it becomes necessary to look at the zero plane in the 2D view, this is how you turn it on. Okay? And yes, Brooks, as Brooks says, the zero plane can be cropped, tilted, and faded. Yes. So, Marie says that's so weird because you don't have a tool path for the zero plane, right? No, there is no separate toolpath for the zero plane, and this is an important point. The minute you add a zero plane, it becomes a part of the model. Okay? Looking at the 3D view, that zero plane is a part of the model. So for instance, this matters if I come over here to do a roughing toolpath, which in this case, I'm going to do a roughing toolpath simply because I've got a lot of material to cut out here. And it's faster to do it if I do a roughing toolpath. It's going to take me into material setup. I've got a total model thickness of a 1/2 inch. That's fine. My Z gaps and all that other is fine. Now it's going to bring me into the roughing toolpath. This matters that the zero plane becomes part of the model when we get over here to the machining limit boundary. If you are going to machine to the model boundary, thinking you're only going to do this and the bulldog, remember the zero plane becomes part of the model. If you put a zero plane in, your entire material surface is part of the model. So it's the same thing as the material boundary. That's only if you have a zero plane. Now you can mitigate that by adding a vector out here, and you can machine to the selected vector. So you can limit that. If you don't want it to cut out here, you can machine to the selected vector by adding a vector out here. Okay. So Michael Ludwig is asking, if you tilt the zero plane, can you flatten on an angle? Yes, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Okay. Go over here and I'm going to get rid of all of this. We'll delete my dish and my dog. And I just have a zero plane. That's all. So I'm going to select it. Let's go back into the 3D view. And I'm going to right click it. Go into properties. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's fade this, set, and I'm going to go 1, straight across, 2, Now I'm going to set an angle of 35 degrees. Okay. Now if I look, oops, I went the wrong way. Yep, I went the wrong way. That wasn't a fade. Set. Back up to the top here. Okay. 35 degrees. I'm going to try a tilt. Set. Come on, straight across. There we go. Nope, it didn't take. Come on now. All right. Now we'll go. There we are. So now my zero plane is on an angle. Okay. Yes, that's right. That was a percent. That was not a degrees. You're absolutely right, Brooks. Thank you. I didn't see that. Okay. There's my angle. Now, that's a whole lot. Let me go into the 2D view. And we'll go into the design tab here. And I'm going to draw a rectangle. All right. My 3D view, turn on the vectors. There's my rectangle. I only want that rectangle tilted like that. Let's go back to the 2D view. Now we'll go to the 3D view. We're good. I'm going to go into the Components tab. Select the zero plane. With the vector selected, I'm going to go up to the level. Right click. Go to Clipping. Apply. Now suddenly only that area, if I turn on my zero plane layer, only that area is selected. Go back into the 3D view. Now, obviously, that's way, way, way too tall. But I've got a shape height of 0 and a base height of 0. This does come in handy, believe it or not. Let's say I was playing with this once. What was I doing? I had shape I was cutting. I was trying to do a square recess that was sloped. I'll have to dig out that file and show how I did it because I don't remember how I did it right now. So that's something I'm going to make a note of right here. I did a video a few years back about making a tapered hole. It was a circle using the molding toolpath. And people were asking, can it work for a square? Well, this was a workaround for that, but I got to remember how to do that. So I have to go back and find the file that I was experimenting with this in. So let's see, tapered. I'm writing myself a note. Square. I really don't remember how I did it. Oh my God, that's frustrating. Okay, I'm going to take that clipping off, remove. And I know it wasn't that drastic of an angle. I don't remember what it was. Let's see here. It can be handy. It came in handy for me when engraving some limestone, which wasn't flat. I got the text V-carve equal depth. Yes. Yes. Okay, Steve is right there on the spot with the carving a tapered hole video. This I don't have a video on. I was playing around with it behind the scenes and was going to do a video on it, but that never came to fruition. So there isn't a video on that. So, but yes, the point is the zero plane can be set at an angle. So it can also be trimmed. If you're using a spire, you can. Did I get rid of the zero plane? Yes, I did. Okay. Back to the design tab. To get a zero plane, hold down the control. This is an Aspire. Hold down control and click on this first icon. Create a flat plane. Oops, I didn't do it right. Hold down shift, not control. Hold down shift and click on it. Then you have a zero plane. In Aspire, I can select that zero plane, select the vector, and clear everything outside of that vector. So I've only got a zero plane right there. Okay. Now, if I come over here to the component tree, click on that zero plane, right click to come into the properties. I can fade. So we're going to go, I think I'm remembering how to do it. Let's click off. Okay. Want to fade. Set. Want to go from here to here. I want to fade down, say 5%. All right. And I don't know if you can see. You can just barely make out a little bit of an angle there. Let me go for something more drastic. So I'll Control Z. Let's go with the 50%. Set. And we'll go, I'll go from here to here this time. The second one, boom. Why is it not doing anything? Well, I'll try a tilt. Maybe it just doesn't like me. All right, that's fine. Select the component. Set will go from here to here. And we'll go down 10 degrees. That's still not what I want. But that's all right. This too shall pass. I'm going to give it a, well, it's got a shape height. And let's go with a base height of -0.75. Let it catch up. That's more along the lines of what I'm after. And I'm going to give it, make that an inch, negative 1.0. There we go. That's more of what I'm after. So now I have that slope. All right. Let's see here. We've got some other questions I need to go ahead and get to. Close. I will go back and I will track down that video, or track down that file. Let's see. We had another question here. I hope that answers your question, Ellen. I know I went a lot further than I may have needed to go. Let's see here. 8 Center said, is there a way to add STLs to a custom library in clipart? I can add SVGs and JPEGs, I think even PNG. But with STLs, I need to import them individually. Would be easier to go through the app, though. 8 Center, do you have VCarve or do you have Aspire? If you have VCarve, you will need to, unfortunately, import them individually. If you have Aspire, I'll show you a nifty workaround. But I need to know if you have VCarve or Aspire. You have VCarve. No. Then you can't. You will have to import the STLs individually. If you had Aspire, you could import an STL, then come up to Model, then export as 3D clipart, then put that right into your clipart library. So Aspire is, yes, a feature of Aspire. So sorry. So let's see. Let's go back here. Beach Mountain Woodworking. I have a question for you. I have an answer, but you have to remember that I don't know is a legitimate answer. I want to cut out a 3D acoustic guitar neck, but I don't have Aspire. I only have VCarve. Can you walk us through two-sided piece using 3D toolpaths? You will have to find an STL of, or make an STL of the guitar neck you want to carve. After that, it's a simple matter of importing that STL file in a two-sided project. Okay? So it's not different. It's not difficult. I'll show you in just a second. 8 Center said, so if a friend had Aspire, I could import and export and then it would work in VCarve. No. Vectric thought about that as well, because the clipart file Aspire is going to export is a 3D clip file. That's an Aspire only file. For VCarve, you need a V3M file. Aspire will not make a V3M file. Aspire will read a V3M file. That's why there's so much clipart in Common. But let me show you if we go over here to clipart. This one is a 3D clip. The Bulldog is a 3D clip. 3D clip. The Cantering Horse is a V3M. This is also in VCarve. But these are not a part of VCarve's clipart. They're 3D clips. They're not sneaky buggers. They know that a lot of the people out there using VCarve are sneaky buggers. The simple fact of the matter is VCarve is not 3D software. Aspire is 3D software. You can carve a 3D file, but you can't make a 3D file with VCarve. So they knew that, we would all develop friends, and we got that one friend who has Aspire, and he could export all kinds of clip art for the rest of us, VCarve. No, that ain't how it works. So, in fact, I'll throw you something else. If you look around, you will find, I'm in animals here. This right here is easily the most distributed piece of clip art online. And as you see, it is a Vectric file. Somebody with Aspire created this or loaded this, then went up here and exported it as an STL. That's why it's been spread all over the place. And that's why you will hear me refer to it always as the Vectric Eagle, because that's what it is. But somebody with Aspire loaded it up, exported it as an STL for a friend, and that friend passed it around. So they know that people are going to do that kind of thing, so they take steps. If you want to create a 3D model, you need to have Aspire or another program to create an STL with. So back to the importing of a double-sided job. Let's see here. It's not difficult to do. You have VCarve. Let me load up VCarve. Okay. And we will, as soon as it loads up, we'll get into this here. We'll create a new file. And I'm going to make this, that's fine. I'll make my height 24. And my thickness 2 inches. Just for giggles. I don't need all this, but I'm going to use it. And because we're looking at 3D files, we're going to go very high. Okay. All right. Now I want to import a model. Import a component or 3D model. And I want to go, I know which folder I want to look in. I only hope I have it on this computer. If not, this is going to be a very short demo. And a mistake I made before I even get there. This is a double-sided job. Okay, material surface on both sides, and I'm going to flip side to side. And okay. Now I want to enter a 3D component. I'm looking at my top, and I can tell that because white scales. Now I want to import the component. Let's go to Documents, CNC stuff. Now I got to scroll down here and find this particular STL file. And boy, do I have a bunch of junk in here. All right, here we are. And let's find, there we are, an owl statue. So it's going to take me directly into the import screen. Okay. Now we want to get into orientation. Okay. You can see my block of material right there. I'm looking at the front of the model. Our orientation is not good. I need to lay this model down. So let's look at, do we want to orient it to the right? No. Do we want to go to the front? Front might not be bad. The front might, I think the front's going to work. So I've got my owl facing the same direction as I have my material here. It is way, way, way too big. Way too big. If I look at my numbers over here, that's because it was obviously created in millimeters, not inches. So I'm going to scale millimeters to inches, and that's much better. I don't have to make it that small. Let's, well, yeah, my Z is pretty, yeah, it's pretty thick. All right. Now, this is just scaling it and getting it into position. I'm going to center the model to make sure that I have everything okay. All right, now, so I've got it imported correctly. It's oriented correctly. Now I'm going to go to positioning the model. This is positioning the model along the modeling plane. Okay? This is my top. This is my bottom. What I want to do is I want to create both sides. Now I'm going to put in an overcut distance. What do I mean by an overcut distance? If I were to leave this plane with no overcut, what's going to happen is my bit's going to come down here and it's going to stop right there. And it's going to leave a little radius where that bit ended. Then when I flip it over and go to cut the other side, let's flip it over. There we go. No, I didn't want to do that. Let's flip it over. I want it upside down. There we go. When I flip it upside down to do the back side, the bit's going to stop right here as well, leaving me a radius here and a radius here, leaving what's going to look like a seam of flash along this plane. Let me get back over to top here. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an overcut distance. The overcut distance needs to be at a minimum the radius of the bit you're going to be using. If I'm going to be carving this with an 1/8 inch bit, the radius is going to be a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to use an overcut distance of an 1/8 of an inch because I want that bit. Let me roll this again. When I cut, I want that bit to come past this plane by an 1/8 of an inch. So we'll go here, 0.125. I'm creating both sides. My modeling plane is in the center of my model. I've got an overcut distance. Now I'll import. Now I'm looking at the top of my model. And you see that little gray ghosting right here. This is where that modeling plane was. This is where that bit's going to stop. It's going to carve all the way down to this area. Go back to the top, and now I'm going to flip the material over and we see the bottom. We see that gray area there. It's going to carve beyond that as well, down to this plane. And what that should eliminate is that cusping you get from the bit carving straight down to that modeling plane. Again, I'm using my hands like you can see. So that's how you import a 3D model for a 3D carve in VCarve. Now, this is something that I have not yet found in any documentation, and it needs to be pointed out. When we're over here in the 2D view, we can tell which side we're looking at by the color of the scales over here. I've got white scales. That means I'm looking at the top. If I flip it over, I'm looking at the bottom, and I can tell because the scales are orange. Okay? Flip back to the top, grayish scales. But if I go into the 3D view, it's not so apparent. I'm looking at the top because I know I'm looking at the top. Now I'm looking at the bottom. I know that because I know I'm looking at the bottom. But, quick, what side am I working on? There's the bottom, but it's blacked out. How do I know what size I'm looking at, what side I'm looking at? Well, you can tell only right here on the top of the cube. That's the active side. You see that black line around that square that says bottom? You see that heavy black line? Now, if I flip it over to the top, there is no black line. That is the only way you know whether you're working on the top or bottom in the 3D view. It says so on the top right view cube. Yeah, but I've got it says top, but this is all blacked out. How come I can't see any of my vectors? Because this is not the active side. If I go to the bottom, that black line around that diamond that says the word bottom in has that dark line. That is the only way you can tell what side you're actually working on. I'm on a one-person quest to get them to at least color that diamond the same color as the scales, so it's a lot more apparent. I did not know anything about that line until about 2 months ago. Didn't know a thing about it. Haven't found it in any of the documentation, haven't found it in any of the videos. It's not been mentioned. So I'm on a one-person quest to at least get them to fill in the color of the active side on the, I call this the meatball, the active side of the meatball, so you can tell at a glance which side you're actually working on, same way they'd have it in the 2D view. So, man, I'd love to make an actual 3D. Well, you can. You can. There's a little bit of, I won't say misunderstanding, but I'm going to get out the, I'll get a link to the video. I just wrote myself a note. I did a video a couple of years back on the difference between 2D, 2.5D, and 3D. And I'm going to get a link to it, and I'll post it in a pinned comment and in the description of this video. Some folks are saying that a true 3D needs fifth axis and all this other stuff. If you come from a machinist background, that is probably true. I don't know anything about machining metal, so I don't know what machinists are taught. But when it comes to this, again, bas relief carving, a 3D cut is any cut in which all three axes are moving simultaneously. So if I go back over to Aspire and let's bring Wally Gator in. Where's Wally? You Brits know. If you know, you know. Well, you know the Where's Wally part, but you don't know the Wally Gator part, because I don't know if that cartoon ever made it across the pond. In the world of bas relief modeling, this is a 3D carve. This is a 3D carve because all three axes move simultaneously when carving it. A 2D carve is just cutting a shape. If you are cutting this out, be cutting a hole or cutting out the circle, that's a 2D shape. That's a 2D carve. If you are cutting a pocket where the Z plunges, I'm using my hands here. If you're cutting a pocket where the tool comes down to a certain depth and then moves, that's 2.5 dimensional. If you're carving Wally Gator here, for example, and all three axes are moving simultaneously, that's a 3D carve. It does not have to be like this, where you're cutting all sides. That is not this, although it is a 3D carve, just the fact that you're carving the front, back, and both sides, top and bottom, just that does not make it a 3D carve. This is just as much a 3D carve as this is. Again, we're working in bas relief. Marie says, so the eagle flag from Frome is 3D. Yes. The eagle flag from Frome is 3D. I apologize. Boom. This is just as much a 3D carve as this. Okay? Again, we're talking bas relief. We're not talking machining parts. A bowl can be 3D. Again, if you're making a bowl using a bowl and tray bit, your Z just drops down to a certain depth and cuts out that entire bowl, leaving you a nice, radiused bottom, and it carves out the whole bowl. That's a 2.5D carve. If, on the other hand, you're using a ball nose bit to carve out using a 3D tool path, that's a 3D carve. Again, because all three axes are moving simultaneously. When X, Y, and Z are moving at the same time, that's a 3D carve. That's hard for some people to wrap their head around. They only consider something like this to be a 3D carve. It is, don't get me wrong, that is a 3D carve. But so is that. So is Wally. Again, the definitions are different from bas relief. So, I will link that video, the difference between 2D, 2.5D, and 3D, in a pinned comment and in the description of this video. So, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I believe I got to all of the outstanding questions. Yes, I did. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. And bas relief is it's the type of carving that this is the type of carving bas relief is. Let me get you a good definition. BAS-REIF. Bas relief is come on. Um, okay. Oh man, come on now. Give me a good definition of bas relief. It's a noun in sculpture. Don't give me examples. Give me a good definition. Okay, bas relief also translates to low relief. Is projecting an image with a shallow overall depth. For example, coins on which the images are in low relief. Okay? The term comes from the Italian basso via the French. Let's see. The lowest reliefs of the relative depth of the image shown are completely distorted, and if seen from the side of an image makes no sense. Okay, that makes no sense to me. It's just a low relief. It doesn't stand super tall. It's not. Let me go back to that is high relief. This is not bas relief. This is bas relief. Now, I say that because this is carved, either this is carved away and that's left on the surface, or this is carved into the surface. This, although the modeling type, the carving type used is bas relief, this is not a bas relief piece because this is meant to be cut free and left standing up. This is a high relief. So, all right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Again, okay, there we go. Brooks Martin. Alto relievo, high relief, approaches 3 dimensions, while bas relief at times is more akin to 2-dimensional drawing. Yeah, kind of, but, not really. Oh, that didn't mean to highlight that, but you're welcome, Marie. Again, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Channel members, tomorrow evening we got some unfinished business to catch up on. It will also be episode 51 of season 3. Yes, 3 years we've been doing this. Almost. We're going to be taking care of a lot of unfinished business. We're going to be getting back into some of the cribbage boards. We're going to be getting back into some 3D. We're going to be getting into all kinds of things, some two-sided models and things of that nature. Next week, I do not have a guest lined up. Um, if you want to see a specific guest on a Sunday live Q&A, leave me a comment down in the comments section, whether it be somebody I've had on before or somebody I've never had on before. If you would like for me to, if you would like to see a guest in the hot seat here and get grilled, leave their name down in the comment section. Okay. So let's see. Channel members, remember to check the community/posts/membership tag for links to tomorrow's members only live stream, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. It promises to be a good time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or you'd like to explore the possibility of channel membership, just right down below this video panel, you'll see a button that says join. Click on that join button. You're not joining anything. You're under no obligation, but a panel's going to pop up and a separate video is going to play that's going to tell you about channel membership. We've got a great group of folks in the super secret Facebook group, in the super secret messenger chat, and we're starting to do live hangouts Saturday evenings when I get finished with dinner, so never at an established time. Live Zoom meetings, just hanging out, talking about CNC, 3D printing, laser, barbecue, hot rods, whatever you want, going fishing, whatever you want to discuss. Saturday evenings with a fluctuating time. For everybody else, I will see you next Sunday. We'll get into some more hijinks. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. I truly appreciate it. Now go do something cool. Go make some chips or kick back and eat some chips. Have a great day, y'all.